Right, my name is Ethan Fitzpatrick, and this is my pitch. So this is the brief we've been given, and we've been given 3 choices on to pick a role for making a movie. So my first option is being director, and I did a bit of research beforehand, before I picked director, on what it actually means, well, to be a director. And it basically means you are the vision, you create the vision for the film. That was Noah Jepson. And to be a successful director, you need 2 essential skills: filmmaking skills and strong communication skills, which I believe I have. And as, wait, no, I've already said that. But the reason why I think I should be director is, like I've said, I've got good communication skills and I've got good filmmaking skills, just to avoid the thing I just said then. When I was younger, I was inspired by directors such as Sam Raimi, James Cameron and Steven Spielberg to create stories. Especially when I was a kid, and I'd play with action figures like I'm pretty sure everyone else did. But instead of playing them like a normal kid would, I would use my eye as the camera and to see what would make a good shot for a scene. And later on, I eventually started making my own fan-made movies, as you're all aware, such as Non-Stop Spider-Man. And another reason why I think I'd be a good director is because I've got good leadership skills, which I think is really essential, because you're pretty much like the leader behind the film, and you've got to make sure everything's in check. And yeah, I think I'd be a good director, and I'd be really grateful if I got chose to be director. Why is it not showing? Just pretend you can see my projects there, but
if you click on them, do they work? No. Aww. That's alright.
Hang on, can you see it back up? There we go.
Yeah, that's it.
So I've got Non-Stop Spider-Man, obviously, Vengeance, Trinity, Whisper in the Woods, and Losers at War, which I think are some of my best work. And then for the actual pitch, I picked the dancing scene from Spider-Man 3 when he confronts Eddie Brock for making a fake picture of Spider-Man. But in my version, I want it to be a commentary on AI, where instead of a fake picture of Spider-Man, he uses an AI picture and he confronts him about it. And then obviously the dance afterwards, because why not? Then for my inspiration, I've used Sam Raimi because he was the original director of the scene. So why not just use the director of the scene as inspiration? Another reason why I picked him as inspiration is because he came from a background of low budget directing, and I think that's really important to use as inspiration, because you can tell that he didn't start all the way up here. He was pretty much one of us at one point. Another inspiration I used was James Cameron, and who's directed films such as Terminator 2, Avatar, but he's similar to Sam Raimi. He started off with a low budget directing films with the first Terminator. But one reason why I do think I picked him as inspiration is because of his clear, focused storytelling, with his films having a strong narrative and every scene having purpose. One of the final reasons I picked him is because of his strong leadership, and he's very hands-on. This is a bit of a fun fact, but during one of the scenes in Terminator 2, when the helicopter went underneath the bridge, none of the cinematographers wanted to do it, so he did it himself, which you got to respect. Then one of my final inspirations is Steven Spielberg. I realised I've spelt the name wrong. My dad told me don't worry about it. But one of the reasons why I picked him was because of his clear and effective storytelling. Because in most of his films, I'd say all of his films, they're very easy to follow and they're not really complicated to understand. Another thing is because of his incredible leadership and communication skills, because he's built strong collaborations with John Williams and George Lucas over the years. For my second pitch, I've got a producer, and then I did a bit of research on producing, and basically what it means to be a producer is pretty much you're in charge of the director, and you're pretty much not funded. You can fund the project, but you're pretty much in charge of the director and making sure everything's in check, and making sure everything's on schedule without anything collapsing. So the reason why I think I'd be a producer, even though I haven't produced as much as I have directed, I have produced over the years and I've surprisingly really enjoyed it. For example, one of my friends a couple of years back, 2 years back, my friend Isaac, who lives in Ireland, he wanted to make a film a while back called Chucky Did It, which was based on Child's Play. And I was like, oh, let me have a look at the script. And then I was actually really surprised at how good it was. So I decided to produce it and help him out and make sure everything went alright with it. And it came out and it was really good, and I'm really proud of that project. But some skills that you'll need for producing, which I believe I have, is again strong leadership skills and communication skills. And the reason why for that is because you obviously need to talk to different types of people. You've got your director, camera people, sound people, all sorts of people. So I believe I would be a strong choice to be a producer for this project. And then here are some projects I've produced in the past. Like I said, Chucky Did It, Batman Owls of Gotham, which is also made by Isaac, and then Superman Symbol of Hope. So for my producer pitch, I've used the film Roadhouse, the new one. And in the scene, essentially, Dalton, the character played by Jake Gyllenhaal, he's like a security guard, could you say?
Bouncer.
A bouncer, sorry, thank you. For the Roadhouse, and you see these people messing about in there, and he takes them outside and then beats them up. But in my version, I was thinking about making it where it's at a college, where people are trying to study, but then obviously you've got some people trying to distract them, and then the fight commences outside. And I think that would be really interesting because it keeps the core aspect of the scene, but it changes it entirely. Oh, now you're short now. So for my first inspiration for producer, I've got Kevin Feige, who you may know is the main producer for most of the Marvel movies. And the reason for this is because of his successful collaboration with people, as he works closely with directors, writers and the studio, allowing creative freedom while also maintaining the overall vision for stuff. Another reason why is because he's a huge risk taker, for example with his film, with some of the films like Guardians of the Galaxy, which were big names at the time but now are cult classics. And then this one's for Noah Jepsen. Yes. The Gun Doesn't Jam, James Gunn. And the reason why is because, similar to Kevin Feige, he's a huge risk taker. I mean, after all, he did make Guardians of the Galaxy.
No.
And another reason is because he's got both experience as being a writer and a director. So he can understand, similar to me, I've got experience with writer and director, so you can understand where the director's coming from that are working for you. Then for my final inspiration for producer, I've got Joel Silver, who was the producer for the film Roadhouse. And I eventually looked up with some research, and he's actually done a bunch of action movies.
Did Die Hard.
Yeah, he did Die Hard, yeah. So I feel like that's what makes him quite a good inspiration, because he knows what the audience wants, he knows what types of films he does, and he doesn't try to hide it. He doesn't try to make it the next, the next Godfather. He's just making an action movie that you want to enjoy, and I feel like that's what I would be like. I just want to see a movie that I just want to enjoy. Then for my final option, I've got camera assistant. So I did some research on being a camera assistant because I didn't know really what a camera assistant was. And it's pretty much the person that sets up the camera for the camera operator. Therefore, making sure it's charged, making sure it's in focus, etc., etc. And I believe I'd be a good, be a good option for this because of some of my experience I have. For example, last year I did a level 2 photography course, and with that you had to learn about the ins and outs of a camera, and I feel like that's quite an important part of being a camera assistant. And in addition to this, I also know I've used quite a few cameras in my time, and I know how they work and stuff, and I just enjoy using them. For my camera assistant pitch, I've got the American Psycho card scene where they're on about their business cards, but in my version I want it to be about a bunch of film bros where they're talking about their favourite movies and they bring out DVDs of their favourite movie and discuss it with each other. And I feel like this would be really good because the camera is quite important to the scene, so I feel like I'd have to make sure it was like the camera was charged and everything and in focus, because there's intense close-up shots of Patrick Bateman, wide shots, etc, etc. For inspiration I've used Bill Pope. Even though he's not a camera assistant, he's a cinematographer, I feel like he is good inspiration to use. He did films such as the first Matrix, Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man 3. But I do think he is good inspiration to use because he understands focus and movement for films. He also, like most of the people I've used, he's got strong collaboration skills and his dynamic visual style, which I really like. Another inspiration I've used is Greg Fraser, who, sorry, I'm just reading this out. One reason why I did chose to pick him is because of his exceptional attention to detail, which I think would be really important to have for being a camera assistant, because you've got to make sure if you're making sure everything's really on point, you got to make sure everything's charged and ready to go for the shot. Another thing is because of his his visual storytelling, and Fraser uses lighting and composition and camera movement to tell the story visually. For my final inspiration, I've used Henry Braham, who originally did start off as a camera assistant, and I feel because he knows how to use a camera, and obviously how to move it and stuff, because he's a camera operator, he also knows how to use a camera. And then here are projects I've worked on as a not as a camera assistant, but how when I've been a director of photography in a way. So I've got some of my projects from this year and as well as Non-Stop Spider-Man and stuff. That's it.
Any questions for the Fitz? Yes.
When is Non-Stop Spider-Man coming out?
It's already out.
It's been out. You've
The
released,
new
you've
one.
like released it and then deleted it.
No, it's back up. I'll put it back up.
Oh. Okay, I'll have to watch it again.
When's Power Ranger Genesis coming out?
It's next year. Well, no, this year.
Any questions relevant to the pitch?
What do you think of Sam Raimi as a whole?
I like Sam Raimi.
Okay. Right, I've got some questions. Good stuff, Ethan. The Fitch well and truly does not glitch. You've done well there.
Oh yeah, why didn't you put the image at the end?
I was tempted, but no, I was like, nah.
So, one of the things I really liked for straight away was that Ethan included the brief, and he hadn't just copied and pasted it, he rewrote it into his own words. So it shows that he understands what he had to do, shows that he understood what I was asking of him and what he needed to talk about today, which was great. He did loads of good stuff on that. You had good examples of what the role of director and producer and stuff entails, and you talked about how that matches your own skill set. If I was just to go push you a little bit further, I'd say maybe some people have done so far is identify the skills that you're missing that you want to improve on. So that's just a little minor thing if I'm being picky. Now the directors you chose, normally I'd be like, oh right, he's picked James Cameron, he's picked Steven Spielberg, he's picked these big directors, but what you took from them was really, really good and really inspiring. So you picked talked about Sam Raimi, and if you watch any of Sam Raimi's early films, they're very rough and ready. And there's lots of stuff in his later stuff, like he did Doctor Strange, the Doctor Strange film he did, which is takes loads of inspiration from his early work, and you can see those threads through his filmography, which is really good. The same with James Cameron, when you talked about his commitment, he's all-consuming commitment to it, which is what you're going to need. And again, the wholesome nature of Spielberg's work and how it's very easy watching. Sometimes he gets criticised for being too sort of whimsical. But I can see that matching your style and your personality. So those are all good choices. I thought Kevin Feige was less relevant, but when you talked about the collaboration and stuff like that, you kind of drawed it all back together. Gunn was relevant to your second idea, Roadhouse, because a lot of his early films, if you watch them, are very violent, and also even Suicide Squad is very violent. And Joe Silver I thought was a really great choice for that. So all those were really good. In terms of your film, I like the commentary on AI, it's relevant. The Roadhouse, the original Roadhouse is one of my favourite films. I think it's so good. I've not seen the remake, but I've heard it's a bit.
I like it. I thought it was quite good.
But again, setting it in the college, making it feasible to make. That's an important thing. So it's feasible to make. You change the dynamic.
That's one thing I made sure with all the scenes that they're like realistic to me.
Yeah, but my favourite was definitely the American Psycho scene. Even down to the title, like there's like a thing in cinema now where films just seem to chuck American in front of it. American Fiction, American Psycho, American Sniper, American Beauty, American Gangster. It's just like, what should we call this film? I don't know, stick American in front of it. So something about film bros sitting around discussing films all the while it being based on an American something film could be the relevance of the story. They could be comparing different American films, American Sniper, American History X, American just maybe like 10. So I think that's I think so far my favourite idea of them all. As you can tell from the screening, I love a comedy, even if the college doesn't. So I think I'm really impressed with that. You've done a really good job. I think that's definitely going to be one of the ones we do, even if it's not maybe you or somebody else doing it. But I love American History X, but it's not American Psycho, but it's film bros discussing.
Yeah, it could be called Cinema Psycho.
Yeah, and you could pull out a Blu-ray at the end or something. And it was like, I think that's amazing. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
We'll do one more, and then we'll have a quick break. We'll do Oski next.
Yes.
The Oscar doesn't crash.
It doesn't.